Hey everyone, this is Alex, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about when the best time of day to place your bets are. It's pretty market dependent and sport dependent. There's a lot of nuances that you'll kind of pick up on the more you go, but I think it's useful to know a few of these tips, when you're just starting out too, because I want you guys to be finding the best value possible. Just as a disclaimer, there's definitely, I personally don't think there's ever a bad time to place a bet. I've said this before, but uh, a wager that's plus EV in the moment of when you place it is a good bet no matter what. It doesn't matter if it ends up closing at negative EV, you're getting negative closing line value. That's okay because over the long run, those bets are still going to be profitable. So the farther away from the game you are, the more you're risking. You're exposing yourself to more volatility in the market, right? If I bet on an NFL game for Sunday on Monday, I have no idea when rosters come out and maybe the quarterback gets hurt in practice. Like there's just more time for things to happen for the line to move. So again, that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. You're just exposing yourself to more volatility in the market, and there's a better chance that that line is going to move by the time the game starts. But if it's plus EV in the moment, let's say it's 2% plus EV in the moment. If you were to get a 5% positive swing, there's a 50% chance you get a positive swing. So let's say that's 5% EV, and you're at 7% at game time. There's also a 50% chance that it goes the other way. Let's say you get a 5% negative CLV from that positive 2%. Now you're at negative 3. But you see 7% and negative 3%. 7% is more good than negative 3% is bad, if that makes sense. And the average there of those two is 2%. So on average, that EV that you got is being preserved in the long run. That being said, there definitely are better times for specific sports, specific markets that I'm going to get into. I personally think that for main lines like spreads, totals, money lines, puck line, run line, anything like that, not player props. So main lines, I think those you should be getting in as early as possible. Um, that's assuming that you're already experiencing some sort of limit on these softer books like DraftKings or Hard Rock or BetMGM. If you want to preserve your accounts as long as possible and you're not limited yet, maybe don't bet days in advance because that signals to them that it's sharp action coming in and it's more likely you're going to get limited. But assuming that if you already have some sort of limits on your accounts and you're just trying to get down as much as you can, I would be betting as early as possible. These games are not dialing in their lines days out from a game. So, especially for NFL, when they're coming out with lines 5 or 6 days before, you may as well get them in when they show value because there's not a lot of people betting on them. So, they're not really looking that closely at those lines. So when there's not a lot of public action coming in, the lines are not going to be as dialed in as they will be right before game time. That's why it's harder, at least, to find good value right before game time because most of that market is pretty much fully perfected, essentially. It's almost always going to be representing the exact probability of each side happening, and there's really no value. That doesn't mean you're never going to find value right before game time. I'm just saying it's harder. Now, for player props, I think it's different. Player props, I prefer to do right before game time. One reason being, usually, especially for like NBA and games that they're happening every day or every other day, and the lines aren't coming out days in advance, they usually don't even have a lot of player props out days before the game. So they usually don't even have them out the morning of the game, a lot of the times because they don't know who's playing, who's not playing. So usually right before game time, those player props are moving all over the place as well. So it's very easy to catch books lacking right before game time, like 30 minutes leading up to game time. When they finalize their rosters, when if anyone was a game time decision, they get ruled out. The other players' lines move, right? So that's kind of when I'm placing most of my player props. My DFS value is almost always coming right before game time. Where this gets more sports specific is, let's say, for the NBA. they have to come out with a injury report. It might not be completely finalized because, like I said, there's going to be game time decisions, but they need to at least have like a declaration on the status of each player, and that comes out I think around 11 between 11 and 1 a.m. local time, depending on the time of the game and stuff. It could be different, but there is a time that that report has to come out. So that's usually when books are making a lot of their lines, when lines are moving all over the place, when the market hasn't fully figured out what the fair value is. That's also a good time to catch, the softer books lacking a little bit, where the sharps are always, the market movers. You want to be following those books, and seeing where the value is in those moments. Now, for baseball, that could be when the lineup is finalized. So that usually comes out again around the same time. If you're assuming a 7 p.m. local time game, the lineups usually come out, I don't know, between 2 and 4 p.m., something like that. So that's also when a lot of the books are going to be coming out with their player props, when lines are going to be moving. Totals and spreads and money lines are also going to be moving a lot then. So that's another thing to note. So here's an example. Yesterday, I bet on the Celtics. I think I got minus 8.5 or 7.5 or something like that. And no more than 1 minute after I placed the bet, the line immediately dropped to -3 for the Celtics, and it was because Giannis was ruled in for the Bucks, and they Celtics actually still covered. But I mean, obviously that was terrible closing line value on that bet. But what are you gonna do? It's gonna happen sometimes. I could have very well bet the Bucks plus 7.5, and then Giannis gets ruled in, and I got 4.5 points of CLV. So again, don't be upset about when that happens because it's gonna happen. But that was a huge fluctuation. That was around 3 p.m. So that's kind of when a lot of the line movement's happening, like I said. So betting on player props early is actually something I really don't do that much. Like I said before, it's not a bad thing to do, but player props are super, super volatile and they can jump up and down so quickly when someone gets ruled out. So that's just something I personally don't do that much. I like to do it right before game time because then I know that I'm locking in good value. But again, if you don't really care about volatility, go for it. Last thing I'll say is, like I said before, main lines are pretty tough to find value on right before game time. Not as much for the softer books, those are generally always going to be showing some value, but especially on like prediction markets and exchanges, those spreads are just going to be super, super tight at the end or right before game time. So if you're finding value on an EV scanner, on a prediction market or an exchange, 2 minutes before game time, especially if there's a lot of liquidity available, it's probably not great value. Um, Usually, both sides are going to have tons of liquidity, and it's going to be a super, super tight spread. There's just not there's just not value. That is representing pretty much the exact probability of each side of those happening. So I would stay away from prediction markets and exchanges that are highly liquid markets right before game time. um, yeah, I mean, the value that you're seeing on the EV scanner might not be reflecting the actual value, especially like I said, when there's super high liquidity. Those are the sharpest books, that are you're gonna get. All right, long story short, get in those main lines as soon as possible, assuming that you're not trying to avoid limits. And the player props, I'd wait until the rosters get finalized. Try to catch some books lacking during those roster announcements, and right before game time is going to be your best bet for those. And yeah, the longer, further out you are from the game for any bet, the more volatility that you're exposing yourself to. So keep that in mind. Um, and if you are doing that, then don't be afraid of the negative CLV bets that you're going to get because those are going to happen. Um, but yeah, I think that's all I got for this video. Hope everyone enjoyed. If you have any questions, you could shoot me a DM on X. My handle here at Keep On Betting. Any questions you want, video requests, anything like that, I'll reply to you on here. But yeah, again, hope everyone enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.